shit you added here.
Damn it, Ben. We're going to stay silent for 5 seconds here so that I know to cut this out at the beginning. Please don't let me forget to cut this out at the beginning. Okay? All right. 5. Episode. Fuck you. Let's try it again.
I was gonna go. What's this shit right here? When you do the countdown. All right.
All right, here we go. For real now. For real. We gotta do this for real.
Do you want me to do it?
Here we go. Episode 34, Winded City Countdown, Ben Russo, Matt Urich, and it is an interesting day in sports because we can't really laugh at Cleveland because of their sports anymore. Plenty of other reasons, like houses for $1, that you can laugh at Cleveland, but not for sports right now. So good for them. It's quite the night last night. I really was a little surprised I didn't wake up and hear that Cleveland was burned to the ground, which, I mean, is there much to burn in Cleveland outside of the block around Quicken Loans Arena?
No.
We could ask Joakim Noah his thoughts on that.
I know
There were reports of a stolen fire truck, but I think those were quickly debunked.
Well,
yes, but there were people dancing on said fire truck.
Yeah, the police and fire department both refuted it, yet there were hundreds of photos of people all over a fire truck. So
there
hey,
you go.
what happens in Cleveland stays in Cleveland, all right?
God, that sounds just so sad. Like, if that was my vacation, it was like, we went to Cleveland, I'd be like, oof. But they're world champions, so good for them. Ben, I know what you're asking. I have a question that I was going to pose to you guys later in the show, and I didn't want to forget it because I thought of it like 1 this afternoon. So that's why that's on there. And we don't need to go into much detail with it, but it was just something I was like, ooh, that could be fun to discuss. So we'll talk about that. But let's talk about the NBA Finals last night, Game 7. As I will gladly admit, I've been on the Warriors since the beginning. I thought there was no way they were going to lose this series. Even going into last night, I thought it was tied with 4.5 to go. I believe it was 89-89. I still thought the Warriors were going to win, and until LeBron James made that second free throw, I was like, oh. I think the Warriors are still going to hit a 3, and this is going to go down as one of the greatest gut punch losses in the history of mankind. And it didn't. And I want to say that the play that we're going to see forever and ever and ever and ever is going to be that LeBron James block of Andre Iguodala with 2 minutes to go, where you're like, oh, that's going to be an easy layup, and all of a sudden LeBron comes out of nowhere. And it just rejects the shit out of him, and it's amazing. So, Ben, we'll start with you. Thoughts on Cleveland winning the title, LeBron James, the whole works. What do you got?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, like we've talked about, I think all of us have kind of been Team LeBron along the way. I mean, we don't necessarily hate him like, most people do. But, yeah, I mean, obviously I was actively cheering for Cleveland throughout the series. Down 3-1, I certainly thought it was over, but obviously, he wrote another chapter in the LeBron James book, put another notch on the resume. I mean, 3 championships now. What is it, 6 straight or 7 straight? Or he's made 7, but he's been to 6 straight NBA Finals. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what else the guy needs to do to really put him in that conversation of the top 3. I mean, I think he is at this point. I mean, he's a top 3 player in the league history. You saw the stat that came out. He led in total points, total rebounds, total assists, total blocks, and total steals. I think were the 5 categories he led all players in the finals. Yep. So Golden State and Cleveland combined. So just again, it was cool to see for Cleveland. I mean, we always had the running joke with them. Was it 51, almost 52 years of just nothing, and they finally get theirs. Now, granted, they still have a really crappy football team, but whatever. They're off the schneid. Who's next on the list, by the way? Do we know?
San Diego, in terms of cities.
Is it Philadelphia?
No, they had a World Series just 5 years ago or something.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, with the Phillies.
No, San Diego.
I'll have to look that up.
I
guess I'm looking more like major, multiple.
You have more
teams.
well, San Diego has 2, right?
Yeah. It'll be something we have to research. I don't know off the top of my head.
So here it is. Drought-prone cities. So these are North American cities to have championship droughts among the big 4 pro sports teams. Ottawa is at the top, but they've only got the Senators. San Diego, they won the 63 AFL title, and that's it.
Okay.
Buffalo, they've got the Bills, and they've got the Sabres. They're at 51 years. If you're looking for what do you want the cutoff to be here? I mean, it's got to be 2, right? Because that's all Cleveland had. So San Diego's got 2, so they're at 53 years. Buffalo's got 2, they're at 51. Milwaukee does not have 2.
Yeah, they have 2. They got the Bucks and the Brewers.
Oh, okay, so they're at 45 with their 2.
Okay.
That's really it.
So nobody really bad with 3 teams though, right?
I'm trying to. Charlotte is at 28. What do they got? They've got the
football and basketball.
No, it can't be though. It's saying Charlotte, but I guess that's a tough one because the Carolina Hurricanes, but they're out of Raleigh, so I guess that doesn't technically count. Cincinnati is at 26 years, but they've only got the 2 again. It's Minnesota. It's got to be, right? 91 World Series. They haven't won a World Series. No Super Bowls. NBA titles. So it's Minnesota. So they're at 25 years, and they have. And it says here, this is the longest current championship drought for any metro area with a team in each of the big 4.
All right.
So
Minnesota then.
Yeah. So, Matt, let's get some thoughts from you. I got a couple nuggets, but let's get to you first, as it looks like the Sox might choke one away here. It's going to be so exciting. Go ahead, Matt.
Of course. I'm assuming we're still talking Warriors here, right?
Yeah,
Warriors. Yeah, it was okay. That thing. I thought that game last night was really, really good, and it's tough, I guess, for Game 7s or big games like that to live up to the hype, and I thought that game did. To me, I think the bigger thing, we saw LeBron be LeBron, and the beginning of this series, he didn't have that like killer instinct sort of thing, it's hard to explain. He didn't look like the guy that was trying to take over the games, and once they went down 3-1, it was just like LeBron all of a sudden was like, I'm putting this on my back, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to dominate, and I thought last night he was just Sunday night he was fantastic. I mean, to see 27 points, 11 rebounds, 11 assists or something like that.
Only the third player with a triple-double in a Game 7.
Yeah, unreal. He took that game over. He played amazing. I thought Kyrie had an amazing game as well. He actually, for a guy who doesn't play very much defense, I thought he held up pretty well. Kevin Love, who, from a point standpoint was not all that great, but he got 14 boards. I thought he played probably one of the better games he played all series. And there was that moment late in the game where the Warriors got the switch they wanted on defense, and Love was on Steph. And for like 10 seconds, Kevin Love held Steph in check. And that was probably the biggest thing he did the whole series. So, to me, I think it solidifies LeBron James as one of the greatest of all time for people who, for some reason, didn't think that before now. To bring a championship to Cleveland is pretty remarkable. And let's face it, I don't think I'll ever fully grasp the hate just because people just hate him for the decision thing and blah, 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 all that. But for what he did here in Cleveland to come back down 3-1 and essentially just take over that series, he's one of the best without a doubt. I don't think anybody can debate that anymore.
So, in regards to the decision, I think it was fair to hate him at the time. I thought that was such a bullshit way. It was a bullshit way to do that to Cleveland. And again, I'm talking at the time. I think it was a lot of fun to root against him for a couple of years there in Miami. Because it was very anti-NBA. It was very anti what we had seen for years. We're going to cherry pick a super team type of thing, not we're going to draft well, it's going to kind of come together on its own type of thing. And you can think that's bullshit, and that's fine. I'm not saying that that's necessarily a good or a bad thing, but when you look at what people were pissed about, that was, I think, one of the biggest pieces of it. That all being said, if you couldn't root for LeBron James because after he came back because he came back to Cleveland, like he said, he's like, Miami for me was college. I needed to go to Cleveland. I came back to Cleveland. I came back to win a title. Like, if you couldn't root for that last night, that is kind of shitty. Like, then there's nothing that that's a feel-good sports story last night. Now, that being said, I rooted against Cleveland, not because I didn't want LeBron to get the title, but more because, that misery is just such an interesting thing to see in Cleveland. It really is, because I don't know who God hates more, Buffalo, Cleveland, or the Chicago Cubs, and apparently it's not the Cleveland anymore. And so that, for me, that's what I find that to be such an interesting thing. And I say that as I'm waiting for the Cubs here to hopefully win one.
Well, yeah, and I mean it is pretty remarkable that in Chicago you have the Cubs, and it's been such a staple for 100 and whatever years now. But in Cleveland, when you sit there and say that before last night, the Cavaliers had never won one, the Browns hadn't won anything since early 1960s,
64,
and then the Indians had come close a couple of times, but they hadn't won in how many years or even ever, I don't even know. So the fact that
again, I think.
Yeah, no, 48, I think.
48. Yeah.
So
they had a really good team in like 63 or something like that should have won.
But so the fact that you have three teams that have gone that long, not just one. Granted, Chicago had two technically with the White Sox as well, and the Blackhawks went a long time, 50 some years, whatever it was, between titles and all that. But I think I guess I can understand that from your perspective a little bit, Scott, just sort of wanting to see a little bit of turmoil still, I guess, or trying to just watch something further itself.
Yes.
It's like the train wreck thing, you don't want it to happen, but
when it does, you can't help but look away.
Yeah.
So that was interesting last night, and so the question that I wrote down here on our Google Doc where we write down what we're going to talk about for the night was a team that wasn't yours that made you happiest when they won, happiest they lost, sad when that team won, and sad when they lost. So obviously I don't want to go through all four of those because we could do that all night. But is there a team for either of you that sticks out where that team lost or that team won and you're like, hell yeah, that's awesome. Like, that's what sports is about, and that, like, you're rooting almost as hard as you would for any of your teams. Do you guys have any that come to mind? So for me, I have two right offhand that I'll share with you. Number one that I was happy to see win was when the Avalanche won and Ray Bourque won the cup. That was really, 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 really awesome to see because he had played for frickin' ever, and this was it for him, and it was a Game 7, and he won. Like, that was really cool. Like, I found myself rooting hard for them. And, as a kid, because the Hawks were terrible, the Avalanche were the hockey team that I followed and rooted for. But, even so, like, that was still such an awesome moment. And then I will say that the one that I enjoyed watching just lose was that Vikings team that lost to the Saints. when Brett Favre,
Yeah.
Favre
Oh,
threw
yeah.
it. Oh,
That's a good one.
That one made me so happy. I watched that one and just got such enjoyment out of that. Just so much enjoyment.
Oh
out
yeah,
of watching that happen.
for everything that Favre put Bears fans through, it was nice to see him sort of come up short.
So that was my
moment.
happiest when they won, happiest when they lost. Those were the two that
I
immediately
think
came to mind.
happiest for me is a tie.
Okay.
I mean, and it's actually coincidentally that they're both the same team, but mine would have been the first Broncos title in 97, 98.
97 against the Packers.
Yeah. Obviously, growing up, I was a big Terrell Davis guy, so seeing them get their Super Bowl, John Elway get his first, that was cool to see.
Yep.
And then obviously this past year with Peyton Manning, after the season he had, I've been a big Peyton guy. I did not want to see him go out with the season he had without winning a Super Bowl, and obviously, he didn't play a big part in it, but he still led the team, so it was fun to see him go out on top. As far as team that lost, or that I was happy to see lose, oof.
That Favre one, I'm sure, has to rank up there for you.
I never really hated Brett Favre very much.
Okay.
To be honest with you, I think I was more angry that I don't even remember. I remember the game, obviously, but I don't remember who I was actively rooting for. But anytime the St. Louis Cardinals lose is always good. Probably that 2005 year when the Cardinals were really, really good. 2005 when they lost to the Astros, and the Astros ended up playing the White Sox.
Yes.
Which, in hindsight, that would have been because I think if the Cardinals made it, the Cardinals would have put up a bigger fight than the Astros, but so it would have been Jesus Christ, White Sox or Cardinals, who do you want to win there? But
and ultimately, maybe the Cardinals, just because the Cardinals are unbearable. Cardinals fans are unbearable anyways, and now it's just now the Sox are unbearable. And
yeah, but probably anytime the Cardinals lose is good. I don't really have one where I was like, yes, I'm so happy they lost. But yeah, the Broncos ones were the ones that I remember the most.
Good stuff.
Oddly enough, I'll make this real quick just so we don't go too far off on a tangent. Yeah. Oddly enough, the one I really enjoyed was when it was the Patriots' first Super Bowl, which seems weird because they're such a vilified team now, but I was really happy because the Tom Brady story was incredible at the time. The Rams were an amazing team. The Patriots were such underdogs in that game, and it sounds weird, but this was after 9/11. That was in 2001.
Yep,
Patriots, it's just like America, everybody's like they're the Patriots, you got to root for them. But that one, I thought that one was really cool. I'm sure there's more if I actually sat there and thought about it. And then to piggyback off of Ben's thoughts with the Cardinals, I loved when they lost in 2004 to the Red Sox, and then also the Red Sox won their first World Series, since 1918. So that was one of those things that gave me hope as a Cubs fan, because it's ooh, I'm watching this, and this is so, I want to feel that sort of thing, and so I think that's part of it too. So, but those would be my two.
I would probably put the White Sox as the saddest I was when a team won, and it had more to do with the Cubs not being the team.
Yeah, because you had the Red Sox and the White Sox back-to-back years, and it was just man, when's our turn?
Yeah, so the White Sox one was probably the saddest one, and it's not meant as ill will towards the White Sox at all. It was just more of here's that reminder that the Cubs haven't. And 11 years later, they still haven't. So, all right, good stuff there. So, good job, Cleveland, I guess. Drew Carey, I think, was maybe the biggest winner last night, though. Did you see? He put 5,000 doubloons down, I believe, on the Cavaliers to win that game, and it was a 5,000 to pay out. He did it on the money line, so 5,000 won him $8,000.
Yeah.
So he cashed out 13 grand last night. So. Good for him, I guess.
Yeah.
NHL, briefly, the Penguins beat the Sharks. That one made me a little sad because on a couple of levels there, I wanted to see the Sharks maybe get one because they've been going strong for a long, long time. But then on the other hand, I did not like seeing Pittsburgh win it because that puts Crosby now at 2. And it was really cool, like that Taves was, the competition that Taves is at 3. And as much as I know everybody loves Patrick Kane, he's the scorer, I think in terms of all-around player, Taves is probably one of the 5 best players in the league. And, he had 3 and Crosby had 1, and that was going to always kind of be that bit of a comparison there. And now Crosby's at 2. And as you can see, as much as everyone wants to harp on the Hawks' problems this year, the Penguins sure had a lot of them, and they still came out on the other side as champions. Matt, any thoughts on the Cup here? I know you didn't watch a lot of it like me.
Yeah, I mean, I caught really the tail end of that game, more so just because I love the pageantry and all that of a Stanley Cup winning game and all that stuff. So I mean, for me, I like Crosby. I've realized that I've become a person that I really like guys that are viewed as like villains in their sport, even though they're fantastic players. LeBron a good example, Crosby a good example of that. People just hate him because, for a variety of different reasons, but he's still such an amazing player. And so I mean, I thought it was cool. I mean, either way, I would have been fine with whoever won. It's one of those things that I think as Blackhawks fans, and more so for me as a somewhat new Blackhawks fan, that it was sad to see another team win. So, But it is what it is. Hockey will be back in full force, and the Blackhawks will be a strange group of players probably come October.
Yeah, we'll segue into that in a minute. Ben, any thoughts on the Cup final before we talk where the Hawks are at?
Yeah, I was the same. I was happy either way. I think it would have been cool for San Jose. They had a couple of vets, Marlowe and Thornton. I think would have been cool to see them win one. But ultimately, I mean, I think I've made my stance pretty clear with Sidney Crosby, where I think he's the best player in the NHL, and I think you'd be an idiot to not start your franchise with that guy. So, again, just happy. Like LeBron, I'm happy to see him get his again, just because, he's got to prove the haters and the doubters that he's overrated or whatever you want to call him. But, at the end of the day, when that guy's healthy, there isn't anybody better on the ice playing both ways.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that them winning the Cup this year and Crosby getting it that makes me happy is you go back now, and one of the things that's always bothered me is people are like, oh, hockey's luck, and it's all about team. But you go back to the 07 Ducks, since the lockout. I mean, we could even go to the 06 Hurricanes, but you go back to those teams, and every single one of those teams has a real superstar on their team. Red Wings,
and I think that's why you have series in hockey, because you're not, obviously it's going to happen, I'm sure, and I'm sure it's happened somewhere along the way, but you don't luck your way into winning a series. You might luck your way into winning a Game 7 or winning a game here or there, but for the most part, in a 7-game series, the best team generally wins. There's obviously examples. I still think the Hawks versus the Blues this year, were the Blues the better team? I think you could argue both ways, but that's the point, is they were very closely matched, and obviously it went 7. So,
and that's why you want to avoid a Game 7 in hockey, because look at the goal that won it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the point, is it's you can win one game, luckily, but to win a series, I think generally in hockey, the best team wins the series. In basketball and hockey, for the most part.
Yeah, it's difficult to win without stars, and again, you want to see those stars do it. So now, as far as the Hawks go, we talked about it last week. We talked about, would you trade Teuvo if it meant you could get rid of Bix, and apparently Stan Bowman doesn't listen to the podcast, guys.
Or he does, and it gave him the idea to do it, even though we didn't agree.
That
seems more likely.
That is way more likely, but it happened.
Thanks for tuning in, Stan.
And the Hawks did. They traded Teuvo and Bix to the Hurricanes, and Bix will get another chance to be an NHL player, and Teuvo, I think, might break our hearts a little bit down there in Carolina. I think we're going to be really disappointed. that he's not going to grow up a Hawk.
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of people want to tie this to like the Brandon Saad trade. The Brandon Saad trade to me was 10 times worse. I love Teuvo. I think he could have been something, but I think, and yes, he is only 21. I get it. Take everything with a grain of salt that I'm saying here, but this was a Hawks team that at certain points this year and even last year, they were dying for another top six forward. I mean, absolutely dying for one. And I mean, for the most part, Teuvo didn't step up. And again, I know he's young. I know he's still maturing, but there's a lot of really young guys in the NHL that come in and produce right away, and generally those are the guys that are going to turn into superstars. I don't think Teuvo was going to be a superstar. I think he was going to be a solid guy that could have been a top six forward. I personally still don't like the trade. As I think we kind of text back and forth, I think this one is one you have to wait to see how it ends.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's still, I've even heard rumors, a lot of this was, okay, they did this to keep Shaw. Well, I'm still reading stuff that says there's no guarantee that Shaw's back still. So, I mean,
I don't know if I would come back if I am Shaw. Everybody just assumes he's going to come back. You're telling
me
me
Hawks
that
are throwing $4 million at him, I would think he would come back. But
is it impossible that a team throws 5 at him?
I would say, yeah.
I mean, I feel like that would be pretty hard. You'd be hard pressed to find a team that's going to throw 5, but man,
but that's a risk that he's taking because I think he would have to. I mean, again, I still think if they bring back Shaw, that's fine. But if they go out and say get like Brian Campbell for on that 1-year contract, and they get Shaw, and obviously now I don't might as well say it, but with them signing Nick Schmaltz, I mean that's a good group to get to replace Teuvo. I mean, if you're getting Campbell to shore up your defense, you have Schmaltz, you have Shaw still anchoring that third line. He can also jump up to the first line with Taze. He always plays well with Taze. I could see why you did it because they're clearly playing for the win now, and then they added trade pieces again. They added draft picks, which they're certainly possibly going to move to add at the deadline. So I think in general, I don't like the trade, but I'll mark it as an incomplete because I don't know exactly what they're going to do with this new cap space that they found. So,
yeah, there's a lot of questions in regards to that. What are they going to do? I'm just trying to take a quick look here at the upcoming free agent class, and I'm trying to find Andrew Shaw and how many goals he scored this year. Do you know offhand how many he scored?
Wasn't it like 13 or something like that? I feel like that was...
That's probably about right. Probably in that. Real quick, while you guys are looking this up, there was a report or a story filed today by 670 The Scores, Jay Zawoski, and also I'll give a shout out to Jay and my buddy James Teuvo. They do the Madhouse Chicago Hockey podcast, so look that up sometime. But Zawoski had a interesting little take on the Teuvo deal where he said he had been told by some sources that here I'll just read it for you. It says several high-profile teammates and staffers voiced their concern to the organization's brain trust that Teravainen didn't display the day-to-day commitment needed to take the next step in his career, according to sources. So, maybe our perception of what Teuvo could be, clearly is different in the minds of the people higher up. So maybe there was concerns about, his commitment to the game, or maybe how hard he works in the off season, or how hard he works in the weight room, all that sort of stuff. So, I've always trusted Zawoski's people, so I don't really doubt this story here.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
Shaw
Shaw had 14 goals and 20 assists in 78 games. He was a plus 11 player. So, again, if that's a third liner, I'm fine. My concern with him is going to be strictly salary. I don't even know that I give him $4 million, but my guess is that's going to be the going rate at this point. But just to kind of piggyback off that Teuvo report, I know there was another conflicting report that this information came from like last summer or something like that after they won the Stanley Cup. Teuvo went back to like Finland to do whatever instead of staying here to train and do whatever else. So I'm with you though. I trust Zawoski's guys. Zawoski's had
well, and
most of the
Zawoski,
scoops correct. So
he talks about he put some quotes in here from Kimmo Timonen from last year while they're in the middle of their playoff run, and both of them were Finnish, so they sort of bonded with each other. And Timonen had said that he's got a long way to go, that Teuvo's a skinny guy, he needs to work out, the exact quote here is golf is not a workout.
right.
And he said that Teuvo needed to watch and see what guys like Taze, Kane, and Keith do to prepare themselves for games. So I mean, it makes sense because he is such a small guy that he never looks like he bulked up. While Patrick Kane is a smaller guy, he does look like he has gotten somewhat bulkier over the course of the last few years.
Everybody's going to with a professional training program. So,
but to me, it looks like Teuvo's never really gotten much bigger than when he entered the league. 2-3 years ago, whatever it was. So, I'm with you. I'm with you, Ben. I personally don't think I'd want to give up that easily on somebody like that, but they did get some trade pieces back and some draft picks. They feel like they're still in win now mode, and if Teuvo couldn't crack that top 6 last year, what's going to be different in 2016?
Yeah, who knows what's to come here? I think Shaw's value is to be determined here. It's really tough, because the only thing I'm seeing here, I'm comparing like 40-point guys and their last contracts, which doesn't necessarily tell us where they were when they got that contract type of thing. But Chris Versteeg got $4.4 million, his last contract.
But he was a 20-goal scorer, I'm pretty sure.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I just,
at the end of the day, if I don't feel comfortable giving $4.5 million to a guy who is, let's face, he had a really good year last year and he had 34 points. I know there's more to it, than going just based off of points, but we saw good and bad Andrew Shaw in the postseason as well. We have to remember that. He had a hell of a series, and he played 6 games because he obviously had the suspension. He had 6 points, but remember, we also saw him take dumb penalty after dumb penalty late in that series. So, give and take. Your hope is he's 24. He's going to mature a little bit more, hopefully. At the end of the day, I don't see them losing Shaw just because Q made the point of saying, like, this is our guy. He's, I think he said something along the lines of, like, he's irreplaceable or whatever the case, whatever it was that he said, but it was something along those lines. So I would say he's back. What kind of contract is the important part. So
I'd be all right if we move.
Maybe he takes one of the bridge deals. I don't know. Or did he already do the bridge deal?
I believe he's already done the bridge deal. So Chris Versteeg signed a 4-year, $17 million contract with the Panthers after he had 21 goals between Toronto and Philly in the 2010-2011 season. And then since then, he had a 54-point season with the Panthers and then injured, and then putting up 29, 34, and 33 points the last 29, 34, and 38 points the last 3 seasons. So, and he got $4.4 million. I don't know that it's that far-fetched to think that some team offers Shaw 4.5 because he's 24 and they see some.
But that's my point. Is to me, I think Shaw would stay for 4 if his best offer is 4.5 to go play in Arizona. Is he really going to go play for 4.5 in Arizona as opposed to 4 in Chicago?
He might. It depends on what he thinks this Hawks team is going to be over the next couple of years, which, it's so hard to say. But, and the one thing I'm going to go to here is I think for everybody that's worried about where the Hawks are in terms of salary cap, I think there's a lot of teams around this league that you could look at and go, that the salary cap not going up is hurting a lot of teams.
No, absolutely.
So the NHL has a pretty big problem on their hands, I think, with this whole salary cap thing. But that should all be remedied pretty quickly because I'm guessing the players will get some piece of that $500 million that's coming in from Vegas.
You'd think.
Right, like they should get a percentage of that spread out, and not to mention, you get the Hawks are going to be just hoping that they can put.
When is their thing? When is the CBA up for them?
After the 18-19 or 17-18 year. So,
I have a feeling you're going to see something in the way of like like the NBA has with like their soft cap, where you can't sign free agents, but you can sign your own guys. Because if that was the case, the Hawks wouldn't have traded Saad. They would, you know what I mean? Like
right.
This is all a non-issue, which
Agreed.
I kind of think it should be. Especially if it's like a homegrown guy, like if it's like a first
you should be able to be
type
rewarded for developing a guy or
not
something.
not kicked off to Columbus. You know what I mean? Like, but whatever. We'll when that time comes, it'll be.
For sure. So we'll touch briefly here and then wrap this up. The Cubs still rolling along. An absolute embarrassment of riches, it feels like, between Contreras getting a home run on his first pitch last night. Elmore Jr. has been hitting the ball well since he came up. Contreras has an RBI tonight. Elmore Jr. does not. But, here the Cubs are. They Fowler's to the DL, Schwarber DL, Soler DL. And just next man up for this team. It's been pretty impressive. Matt, you have some Cubby thoughts over there quickly?
The guy who's really impressed me in the last week and a half has been Javi Baez.
Yes.
And the fact that Javi can play third, he can play second, he can play short, he can play first, you can throw him out in left field. I mean, he could play anywhere. And his glove, we know what he could do with the bat. We've seen it. He's got power. He can spray it all over the field. He's been spectacular at the spectacular probably not the right word, but he's been very good at the plate lately. But his glove, man, it's
for sure.
Yes, and his glove has just been outstanding. It's like playing a shortstop. That's like Addison Russell quality defense at third base. He's just been outstanding at third.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing, and it's just been next man up. You see it with Contreras, you see it with Almora, you see, just all these guys that even with injuries, it doesn't matter. The Cubs are just rolling along, and it's just been really, really fun to watch.
So the Cubs still going pretty hard here. They're down 3-2 against the Cardinals, and Contreras just grounded into double play. So that guy, damn it, unbelievable. Ben,
Send him back down.
Send him down. Your thoughts on the Cubs right now?
Yeah, I don't think it's anything new. We touched on them last week, and that's why I don't want to spend a ton of time on them because it's the same thing. Nothing's changed. Obviously, Fowler to the DL, but with the way Almora has been performing, to me, this Fowler to the DL was probably more precautionary than anything. Maybe he doesn't only need to really miss 5, 6, 7 games, but you throw him on the 15-day DL to make sure he's completely healed, and let the kids come up and get some more playing time. I still think the needs are there for the reliever, and we'll see who they move. It kind of sounds like Baez, Schwarber, Contreras, and there was another guy, and I can't remember who they named as kind of their untouchables. I think you're going to see, if any of the moves come, it'll be guys from high A, double A that'll get moved. Possibly they brought up the 2 kids to triple A. Jaimer Candelario, I believe is his name, the third baseman, because, he's pretty much blocked for the foreseeable future. And then they had an outfielder, Mark Zagunis, who both pretty highly ranked. I think they're both top 10 prospects in the organization. I think those will be the kind of guys you see moved more than the Baez, Schwarber, or anything like that. Although I did see an interest. John Heyman was on Mully and Hanley this morning and mentioned that the Yankees, if they really, really wanted Schwarber, could offer you Aroldis Chapman and Andrew Miller for Schwarber, and that one kind of was. It
would make you think a little, yeah.
Yeah, obviously I'm not trading Schwarber for either of them straight up. Theo and Jed seem very content that they think Kyle Schwarber is the top 10 hitter. They make it really seem like they think Kyle Schwarber is the best hitter on this team, and it's a team full of really good hitters. So you kind of know where they're at with him, but at the end of the day, if you're playing that, let's go all in. Maybe you do move Schwarber for both of those guys. I mean, that would be pretty tough to pass up, but
For
I
sure.
don't see it happening either way. So
Well, so on one side of times, you got the Cubs who are, maybe going to play it tight here, may or may not make a move, may trade some prospects. And then you have the White Sox who have already made a move, and it might be the worst one ever. It might be the worst return ever in a trade. And that's not saying he's given up as many runs since he came to the White Sox, plus his last start for the Padres, as Arrieta has in like his last 33.
he has recorded 26 outs as a pitcher for the White Sox and given up 22 runs. Not 26 innings, 26 outs.
And the he we're referring to, I realized that I didn't say his name. James Shields. He's terrible. It is comical, and they're going to let him pitch against Boston.
And here's the crazy thing, like they got rid of John Danks for being terrible. They got rid of Matt Latos for being bad. What are you going to do now? I mean, you can't conceivably just toss him to the side now. Not after the money you've invested in him.
My guess is if he stinks again, he has some imaginary injury. He goes on the
throw
DL.
him on the DL. Yeah.
So you can send him to the minors and get some rehab starts. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what else they can do to improve their team. That's the thing is I obviously know what they can do. They could trade for better players, but what do they have left to trade?
They can't. I mean, that's the thing. If they're trying to trade for better players now to win now, you're not really in a position to do it, right? Because you're not going to trade Sale and you're not going to trade Abreu, so you have nothing worth of value to trade for anything now. So they're really the only thing that's on the horizon for them that maybe could help them is if they sign that third baseman out of Cuba that just got deemed to be a free agent.
Yeah, I mean he's probably major league ready too. That's the thing. So I do think I don't know, like you said, what other options they have as far as getting better. I mean, if this is the team they have really moving forward, I can't see there being much confidence in what they're doing. I mean, I did find it funny. I saw somebody tweeted it out that the pitcher they gave up, Eric Johnson, he has an 8.84 ERA so far with the Padres, and they're actually winning that trade. If you really want to think about that. An 8.84 ERA is the best ERA in a trade, and it's by it's like a third less. It's insane. I mean, I think Shields' ERA is like 21 point something with the White Sox. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't know where the help is going to come here, because you start looking at players under 32 that are going to be free agents this upcoming offseason.
Oh, this offseason is shit.
Colby Rasmus.
Ugh.
The best players are Edwin Encarnacion and Jose Bautista, who are 36 years old.
And doesn't that sound perfect? The way that the White Sox have been doing things lately.
No, because I think Bautista's still going to get $150 million. I bet.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I guess I'm looking more along the lines of they've been more than willing to go after these guys that are older.
Jimmy Rollins.
Yeah, Jimmy Rollins. You see him sign Morneau, and it's they feel like they could catch lightning in the bottle with somebody. And you're probably right about Bautista. He's still going to earn a pretty decent amount of money. I mean, the guy can still rake, and all this. He's a guy who in the last 5 years has all of a sudden become this amazing power hitter. So, but I don't know. It's a bad time for the White Sox when you don't have prospects, you don't have guys that you could really move, you don't really have any true assets. And with
at the end of I think they just need to find a way to get better internally. I mean, that's
exactly you would think that after all this time, when you haven't been anywhere near a contender since 2005, that something needs to change higher up, and just giving Kenny a different title and making Rick Hahn your GM clearly hasn't made a whole lot of change. Nothing's really changed on the field.
Your best free agent under 30 is Kenley Jansen,
He's a closer. Sox don't need one of those.
Aroldis
They
Chapman.
already have a $12 million closer who's got like a 4 ERA. So
Yeah.
Add another one.
Position players: Wilson Ramos from Washington. Logan
Washington's not going to
Morrison.
let him go.
You wouldn't think. That's it.
It's not good. There's nobody in free agency this year.
Colby Rasmus. That's about it. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with them, but we'll keep talking about it here. And let's wrap up the show for the weekly with Copa America, the draw that nobody wanted. It's going to be Argentina tomorrow night.
I wanted it. To be the best, you got to beat the best. You know.
Yeah.
Get that Herb Brooks speech ready.
That was the first thing I thought of when.
No Bobby Wood.
No Jermaine Jones.
No Jermaine Jones.
Which is even more terrifying.
And Bedoya, right?
Yeah, no
No
Bedoya.
Bedoya. You get what's his name back? Yedlin.
Yeah, DeAndre Yedlin will be back.
DeAndre Yedlin's back, so that's good. It's going to be a tall task.
Well,
They're gonna win.
Well, of course, but it's still a tall
USA's
task.
gonna win.
I hope so. I'm hoping for it. This I will say though, this feels very much 1980 U.S. Olympic-ish.
Yes.
Olympic
That's
hockey-ish.
Yeah,
Where
that's why we said the Herb Brooks speech, man.
right,
Remember I sent it right off the bat.
you take off Argentina. If you can take out Argentina, it just feels like you're really going to need the next Herb Brooks speech, which is if you lose
don't
this
win
game,
this-
you're going to take it to your fucking grave, and then start to walk out of the locker room and go, "You fucking graves," and then leave, and that's it.
Is he from
And
Boston?
You know why I do it in the somewhat Boston accent is the only time I've ever heard that story told. It was by Mike Ruzioni. So he
yeah.
tells it with a Boston accent, obviously.
Gotcha.
So that's why I think of it that way.
And
So-
the thing is, I mean, if you really think, excuse me, if you really think about it, this could be, I don't know if it's hyperbole to say it, but the biggest soccer match in U.S. history.
It's a major tournament, and a win guarantees you your highest finish in a non-Gold Cup tournament ever.
Yeah.
I mean that's what's on the line tomorrow. Your best finishes are third at the World Cup and fourth in the Copa. Everything else is the bullshit Gold Cup, and that's it. So, and I think they had a second in a Confederations Cup once, which I'm not really sure what the Confederations Cup is. It's one of those.
It doesn't matter. They're gonna win.
So
Start drinking your Malorts.
Malort's for everyone. We need to get Kevin Malort on here to tell us more about Malort. So
If only we knew his real name. Other than, I mean, we know Kevin's his real name or his first name. So
yeah. So all right. Any closing thoughts here as we wrap this up? Matt, we'll start with you.
just real quick, very excited for Tuesday night's game of U.S. versus Argentina. Going to be a tough task, but just the way that the U.S. has been playing with this sort of bit of confidence/swagger lately, I think it could at least be interesting. I obviously hope they get the win. So go USA.
Ben, your thoughts?
NBA, NFL draft, NBA and NHL draft this week. So next week will be, I'm assuming, will be me pasting something on the Bulls for just being god awful.
I'm excited for that. I'm really excited for our list that I've talked about, and hopefully we do follow through with it, where we talk some Game of Thrones. Because last night's episode was Ben and I are in the camp. It's a top 3 episode for sure.
Yeah, I think it's the best I've seen.
I'm gonna watch it again. I enjoyed it, but I told you guys I was like everybody telling me how amazing it was. Like I was expecting something more amazing, but it was great.
Yeah,
It really was.
You were also being a whiny bitch last night, so.
Well,
You
I
were
wasn't
like,
gonna.
I'm gonna go to bed. No, you stay up and watch fucking Game of Thrones.
Wow, that was that was intense, man.
Quickly. Yeah, Game of Thrones. Yeah, we'll save that for next week. I'll talk to you guys about that offline. I got a prediction that I think is going to happen next week, but we'll see how it goes. So, anyways, for Matt Urich and Ben Russo, I'm Scott Sternal. Thanks for listening. Be sure to check out our list episode that we'll post later this week, where we talk about the 10 teams that didn't finish the job after an amazing season. We'll talk about that, as well as pay homage to Michael Jeffrey Jordan and his awesomeness, because he prevented a lot of guys from winning the title. Check that out on the list episode this week. Also, subscribe to us, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, anywhere else that we are. I don't even know where we are anymore. We're everywhere. So check us out. Thanks for listening.